The Pretty Reckless, 25 Unplugged. It's just one song. Oh, shit. This one's shorter, so we'll get to some of the Florence, I promise. Oh, man. I feel so bad.
Year one was lots of fun.
Whoa.
But nothing lasts forever in my dreams. And two, I followed you because you knew the way, or so it seemed.
Nice mic.
Three,
Who is she?
I still believed that we would be becoming destiny. And four, I wanted more, but you were moving on to better things. At 25 and still alive, much longer than expected for a man. At 25, all hope has died, and the glass of my intentions turns to sand and shatters in my hand.
So this is Jenny from Gossip Girl? No way. Taylor Momsen? Oh my gosh. Year one was lots of fun, but nothing lasts forever in my dreams. And two, I followed you because you knew the way, or so it seemed. And three, I still believed that there would be becoming destiny, that we would be becoming destiny. And four, I wanted more, but you were moving on to better things. At 25 and still alive, much longer than expected for a man. At 25, all hope has died, and the glass of my intentions turns to sand and shatters in my hand. What a freaking contrast from the theme of the last song we just listened to. And Cindy Lou. Yeah, Cindy Lou from The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, the Jim Carrey one. Amazing. I mean, now it's that gritty young perspective, right? At 25 and still alive. Much longer than expected for a man. At 25, all hope has died, and the glass of my intentions turns to sand and shatters in my hand. And guess what? This perspective is almost just as, if not more pervasive than that perspective of universal love, right? Of that joy in the moment when you fall in love, as we talked about before, is as fickle as this mirror image as the 25-year-old who has lost hope in all life. Let's keep going. Her voice, unreal, dude. What is going on?
Five to six, a lie, a kiss. The secrets that were served we'd never say. Skip to 8, we called it fate. To live, to let us die another day. At 9, I saw the signs reflected in the barrel of a gun. And 10, we're here again. And those who loved me burned up in the sun. At 25 and still alive, much longer than expected for a man. At 25, our hope has died, and the glass of my intentions turns to sand, shatters in my hand, shatters in my hand.
Okay. Bridge is coming up, but yeah, Horacle. I mean, it's an amazing question. I wonder how much of this is about being a child actress. If we look at the lyrics, and a model since she was a young age and started modeling, started modeling as a child, the age of 2. 5 to 6, a lie, a kiss, the secrets that were served, we'd never say. Skip to 8. We skip 7. Skip to 8. We call it fate. To live, to let us die another day. And 9, I saw signs reflected in the barrel of a gun. 10, we're here again. Those who loved me burned up in the sun. It's counting up the years, right? Year 1 was lots of fun. I mean, I'm curious as to, like, if she's talking about years, but when did those years start? Was it, birth, or was it a specific year, right? I mean, I'm sure you could note back to different moments of her life. If she started modeling at 2, then everything is very public. Even if there are no very specific memories, you can look back and find those moments, right? Where oh my gosh, this is dark, man. And I'm torn between, thinking about the lyrics while she's singing them and hearing what's going on with her voice. I love this shot, the angle that we're given. This, like, it's incredibly vulnerable. This is not produced. This is in her home. This is a quarantine recording. But you can see everything happening in her throat. And while she's singing in that low, gritty position, it's all about laryngeal relaxation without adjusting anything that might cause the larynx to raise and shift into like a head voice position. The vocal folds are thick. The chords are dropped. She is relying on a really harsh phonation. And when she goes up, you can see that tension come in as she sings those higher notes, right, at this point. When she goes up for higher notes, they maintain that grit and, like, gruesome rasp in the sound.
Unexpected for a man at 25, our hope has died.
Not easy.
And the glass of my intentions turns to sand, shatters in my head.
Here.
We're here again. Those who love
Genoma, this is
the sun. At
Taylor Momsen. Here, watch this. She's doing a lot of work to maintain that lowered laryngeal position that allows her to maintain all of this grit and sound in here. I wrote that song when I was 25, and we recorded it right after I turned 25. It's very autobiographical in a lot of ways. I thought it would be an interesting idea to figure out a way to go through all these years of my life and somehow calculate that and have it end with 25, but the inspiration was really drawn from me just reflecting on my life up until that point, writing this autobiographical song from a place of despair. When I finished writing 25, it was a moment where I noticed the shift in my writing. I took a bit of a turn, and I think that I got better. Wow. So, yeah, this is pretty reckless. Taylor Momsen is singing. She's also as well-known actress, from a lot of really big projects. Gossip Girl, The Grinch. And that story that comes from her, Creeper D, thank you for finding that, is really, really indicative of the therapeutic nature of creating music. Right? We've talked about this with BTS, actually. There's that one song we listened to, Tear, where it talked about all of the struggles that were going on in their lives as individuals, as musicians. This is a deeper story than just her life as a musician, because there's a lot more going on for her. But when musicians have actual lives that they live and actual stories and emotions to tell, whether they write those lyrics themselves or are just performing a song that has a specific meaning, an exact meaning in accordance with their life, right? The fact that she says she got better after writing this is just a huge testament to the fact that putting these ideas out into the world releases them from the inside. You know, you can go and talk to your friends. You can go find a therapist to talk about your woes. You can go and talk to people. You can create art. It's all a form of human expression and human therapy. And the value and consumption of that expression is neither here nor there in the context of like capital M music. Music itself is that expression for expression's sake, sonically and emotionally. Here she goes. On the record, it's kind of the first musical shift. If you listen to the album from front to back, it starts very heavy, very dark, very bleak. And about halfway through the album, it takes a musical shift. There's hope and there's light at the end of the tunnel. And that's all very intentional with the track listing. 25 is kind of the first indication that there is hope. It was certainly a growing point for me as a songwriter where I took a step forward. There, she says it herself. I couldn't say it better.
Much longer than expected for a man. At 25, our hope has died, and the glass of my intentions turns to sand. It shatters in my hand. Shatters in my
Back to the chorus, right? But before that, she does give us that sound of hope. And I'm incredibly, like, impressed and inspired by the way that she's creating sound that matches the emotion of the song, right? So in that bridge, from 11, 12, I held the future in my grasp, and all through my teens I screamed, I may not live much past, right? But it was the sound of hope, right? It was the sound of maturity, the sound of things happening. And what she did with her voice was where before she was sticking in the grit and the anger and the almost the depression. You know, when you sing with that much lower laryngeal position, that much grit, you feel you have to create a pit in your stomach. Now that pit in your stomach is the same feeling, at least to me, that feels like the pit of despair in your stomach. When something terrible happens and you feel everything in your body drop, right? Many of our emotions live in the belly, in the lower thoracic region, corresponding to vocal sensations, right? When we sing an emotion, we also have to feel it in our body. When you create a low laryngeal gritty sound, you have to support in a way that it's a grit, dip in the stomach, pit of despair in the stomach. And she takes that sensation and almost lightens it up with the lightening of the music, right? A little more hope. I held the future in my grasp. And it was hopeful. And the sound changes. And she didn't feel, at least to the empathetic ear, if this is you or me, and what I'm hearing is that it never, she captures that emotion so nicely in that where that bridge happens. It's cleaner, hopeful.
21,
heady, even. But we start to approach that darkness again at the start of the bridge.
Shadows in my head. Shadows in my head. From 11, 12, I held the future in my grasp.
It's a pragmatic sound. It's reflecting on the times when it wasn't so bad. Creates hope in the sound of her voice. It's a sound that can continue to go up without any tension, without any harshness. That's a hopeful sound. That's what she brings us. And that doesn't correspond to any dark feelings in the body when you hear it.
And all through my teens I screamed I may not live much past.
But then
21, 2, 3.
she did live past to 21, 2, 3, 4.
21, 2, 3, 4. 21, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. At 25 and still alive,
Oh my
much
God.
longer than expected for a man. At 25, our hope has died, and the glass of my intentions, the glass of my intentions, the glass of my intentions turns to sand. Shatters in my hand. Shatters in my hand. In my hand.
Okay, so this is very I'm kind of overwhelmed, honestly. I'm like the imagery of the glass of my intentions shattering in my hand, and why she's saying that, and how she goes from that incredibly gritty, angry, frustrated, betrayed sound that's being created by, just a really harsh occlusion of the vocal folds. It's a very aggressive belt. You can see how organized her technique is in this way. Right? When I say technique in this case, she's probably a trained, as a child actress, you're probably a trained vocalist. You figure out how to use your anatomy in a very specific way. And it's a choice, right? It's a very specific musical choice to match the emotion on where it is in the song. And she adds that grit to add intensity at living longer than she thought she would at 25. In the poetry, at least. Her tongue is flat. Everything is very organized, but it's... The glass of intentions, turned to sand, shatters in my hand at 25. It's like you live your life with all these expectations, and at a certain point, those expectations shatter. And that could result in many different things, depending on the gravity and how much weight you put on those expectations. The gravity and weight that she puts into her voice when she's singing this is very indicative of what she was feeling when she wrote this way and when she performs this way. It's a perfect combination that you can only achieve in music, when the weight of a sound in the voice corresponds with the emotions that are being expressed. It's really beautiful. The meaning is her not being in control of her future. Yeah, so the the intentions, like the glass of intentions, is that possession, right? And that idea of your intentions being held, being possessed, and then shattering and turning to sand. She talks from early on until later on, someone being a performer for most of her life and not having control, and maybe accepting that, and maybe based on like the blurb that Creepy shared about what she said about this song is a testament to the acceptance of that, you know, giving up power, giving up control. The way she accepted that was partially due to writing this song, and it's a really, really beautiful thing to experience. Lovely. Actually, let's play it out one more time, because she goes into this wonderful. She actually manifests that idea of letting go and accepting the idea in the way that she sings these last few lines in this light, heady space, letting the air take over and letting go of control of the voice. You know, controlling that lowered larynx and controlling that grit was how she was able to keep all of that gravity and intensity in the sound up until now. But when she lets go of that control, it goes into a much lighter, headier place. And we get that cross-section between performance and poetry and emotion that's so impactful. That's overwhelming, quite frankly, if you're really in the music as it's happening.
Shatters in my head. Shatters in my hand. In my hand.
And it really makes you wonder how that interpretation has shifted over the years, right? Or over since she's written it, right? Because I'm sure this wasn't the first time she performed it, obviously. It's just really, it's incredibly interesting. What a beautiful performance. Thank you, Horacle, for sharing that. It's beautiful.